Hello everybody. Just got started and warmed up there with a little jam. I was playing over a track played in the style of Authority Song by John Mellencamp, or I think he might have been John Cougar Mellencamp still, um, back when that song was released. Anyway, welcome to the live lesson. And whoops, we had some noise in the background there. Let me fix that. Okay, so welcome to the live lesson. Of course, I'm Desi. Here I am in my home office slash studio just outside Nashville. If you're familiar with the area, I'm actually down in Spring Hill, just south of Franklin. And I've already received some questions and stuff, so we're going to get started. I'm going to cover some things. And the first question that I want to cover is some people are still confused about using Google Hangouts. So I provided that link, and all you have to do is just go in the member area, and you'll see the video embedded there, and you can start streaming. And then you'll see that there's a link on the video, and you can click on that link, and it'll actually take you to the actual Google Hangouts page. And if you have a Google account, then you can submit questions. So you'll see if you have a Google account, when you're on the actual Hangouts on Air page, you're going to see like a Q&A, question and answer icon, and you can click on that, and you can put some questions in there, and then I'll be able to see them on my end. You can put comments in there too. So, if you want to just say, "Hey, this is so and so. I'm listening. Tell me where you're at today and where you're watching from. I'd like to know." If you don't have a Google account, because you're that last holdout on earth that doesn't want to sign up for a Gmail account, you can still send questions. You can go to the Facebook page. I did post this Hangouts on Air on the Facebook page, so you can just comment on the Facebook page and put your question or your comment or whatever you'd like to say there. And if you're holding out on both getting a Gmail account and you're holding out on getting a Facebook account, you can just email me. So, and by the way, you could, I'll try to check in here while we are, just to see if anyone's emailing. I'll try to check in to see if I'm getting any emails. So, you've got options. Get your questions, get your comments to me. You should be able to hear me this time. We did a test last week and I had some issues with the audio. I'm all wired up, I'm mic'd up, I'm plugged in. You should be able to hear me. So if you can, and you just post a comment in any of those places that I mentioned and just say, yes, I can hear you, you're coming through loud and clear. There may be some streaming issues. I noticed when I did a couple of tests that just the nature of the video chat sometimes affects the audio and the playback of the video a little bit, so that's kind of normal. But you should be able to generally hear me and the guitar. So that covers the first question and how to use Google Hangouts, and then I plan to have to post kind of a backlog of some episodes. I'll probably get rid of the first one because it was just a test and we really didn't cover a whole lot in there. But if there's some useful stuff in one of our live lessons here, I'll probably make a backlog of them and put them in the member area for you so that you could tune in to some of those. And I'll try to provide some more details about what's covered in each one. But we're just getting started here with these live lessons, so it might take a while before I have a backlog of things to upload. Okay, next question is, I've had a lot of people, a lot of members email me and they're confused because when they log into the members area, they think they're not seeing any new courses. So I wanted to explain that. I'm actually going to share my screen with you. Here, let me pull up. Okay. Sharing my screen, you ought to be able to see that. So Here is the member dashboard. Now, if you just look here, you would see that, well, there's, Fretboard Theory 1 courses, there's Fretboard Theory 2 courses, and you might say, well, I don't see anything new. I'm familiar with your first book and your second book, and maybe you even have some of the related videos that were previously available on DVD. This one might be new to you. I actually had this publicly posted for a while, but I pulled it offline and I just put it in the members area. So you may not have seen that before. So this one might be new. But most of the new courses are actually in Fretboard Theory 1 because I only had 4 video programs to accompany the first Fretboard Theory book. I had done a DVD on the pentatonic scale, which is based on Fretboard Theory Chapter 2. I have it labeled Course 2 here. I had done one on the cage system. That would be Chapter and Course 3. I had done a DVD on chord progressions and playing by numbers. That would be Chapter and Course 6. And I had done one on modes. And all of that video footage is here. But I never released any video footage for Chapters 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10. So that's why these are all marked with that new tag. So even though this footage is part of an older book, I just completed this video footage. And there's actually several hours. There's nearly 12 hours of brand new video instruction between these new courses. So, click on this. And also, I went beyond the book. As you go through these courses, you're going to see that I actually give you, we cover more options and I talk about more applications. So there's a lot more information. So you may have already completed, maybe you read Fretboard Theory Chapter 4 some time ago and you're like, well, I think I already got it. Maybe I don't need that video. I would suggest you watch the video because I actually go well beyond the book. For example, in Chapter 5 here with the major scales, I teach the 5 patterns that are in the book. I also teach a set of 7 patterns. You may know them as the 3-note per string patterns, and I talk about them. So I teach melodic patterns. I get into some techniques that you can use to build your major scale playing chops. So again, this goes beyond the book, so you want to take a look at that. All of these courses here, this last one I think was like 200 minutes long. So there's just a lot. I cover a lot here. It's very, very, very useful. So make sure you don't miss that. I've received a lot of questions and apparently there was some confusion there. Fretboard Theory Volume 2. I had previously released video footage that covered the entire book and all of that footage is here. So that book is already covered in its entirety. Let me stop sharing my screen. There we go. And again, post some questions, post some comments. Let me check in on things and see if anything's coming in. All right, I got something here. Okay. Let's move on to another question here I need to ask. Someone is a member and they said, hey, now that I'm an annual subscriber, can you also give me your, he asked for your book, Guitar Rhythm and Technique for Dummies. Can you give that to me? The answer is no, I can't. I authored 2 books for for Wiley. That's the name of the company that publishes the whole For Dummies series. Guitar Theory for Dummies and Guitar Rhythm and Technique for Dummies. I don't actually own those books, so I authored them for another company. They control the sales and distribution. I can't distribute that book. I had given out some copies before. I had done some promos and stuff, and I actually have to, if I want to give someone a copy of the book, well, first of all, I can't give anyone an electronic copy. I don't have them, and Wiley won't let me have them. I could give someone a printed copy of the book, but I actually have to go out and buy it. I can, as an author, I can buy from the publishing company. They do give me a bit of a discount, but I actually have to pay for it. and have it shipped to me, and then I have to turn around and ship it to someone else. So I don't control the distribution of that book. Fretboard Theory is my own brand, and I can control that. And you know that Fretboard Theory was released prior to me writing Guitar Theory for Dummies, and they actually cover a very similar scope. Fretboard Theory actually goes into more depth and covers even more area. A lot of people ask, well, if I've already read your Fretboard Theory books, should I go out and get a copy of Guitar Theory for Dummies? And I tell people, you know, it's up to you. If you really feel that you have a handle on what Fretboard Theory teaches, then not necessarily, because again, it covers a very similar scope. On the other hand, as you well know, when you're studying any topic, reviewing what you've learned just helps you understand it even more. So if it might be helpful for you to get Guitar Theory for Dummies and go ahead, because it is organized a little bit differently. I did kind of rewrite it, and it might be helpful. It might be a good review for you, and it might give you a slightly different perspective just because it was rewritten a little bit. And you know, the stuff that I teach is really fundamental, important stuff. You know, I mean, you see all of the popular songs that I reference. You can see that, you know, these theory concepts are used throughout all styles of popular music. So you can't know them. You know, you can never know them well enough. So if you like the Fretboard Theory material and you just want a refresher course and you just want to, you know, keep feeding yourself that information, yeah, then go ahead and get Guitar Theory for Dummies, and vice versa. Maybe you started with Guitar Theory for Dummies, then you found out there was a whole Fretboard Theory. So if that's the case, I would definitely recommend Fretboard Theory, because Fretboard Theory has so many hours and hours and hours of video footage. Guitar Theory for Dummies has some online clips and stuff, but nothing that gets into the depth that I've put up on the members area with the video. Guitar Rhythm and Technique for Dummies. I had not previously released a book on that before, but I had taught on some of those concepts before. And my plan is that as I grow this GMT members site, that I'm going to start focusing more on topics related to rhythm and developing timing and strumming and techniques as well. So that's going to be added. In fact, that'll probably slowly start coming next. All right. How's everybody doing out there? You can give me some feedback at any time. Let me check in here. Let me read something real quick. Great, okay. All right. Let's keep going. Okay, next question here. We're going to cover this. I got a question regarding pentatonic scale. Someone was getting started with the pentatonic scale and they're learning the patterns. They were a little confused, and let me see if I can explain what was confusing them. They had learned A minor pentatonic, and looks like this. You could start here at the 5th fret on A and play what most people call pentatonic pattern 1. So that's A minor pentatonic pattern 1, if that's the first pattern you learn. Some people actually, you know, there's 5 pentatonic patterns, and you just kind of move position to position, and each pattern will allow you to cover that, to hit on all the notes related to that scale and that position. Most people call this pattern 1, but some people might start with what I call pattern 5. That might be actually the first pattern they learn, so to them that's pattern 1. Or they may have started with what I call pattern 2. So to them that's pattern 1. You know, the numbers don't really matter. They're just a way for us to reference each pattern. They don't have any meaning, and they don't relate to any numbers of other scale patterns. I get that question a lot. Well, shouldn't pentatonic pattern 1 fit together with major scale pattern 1, or caged chord, the first caged chord form. No, not necessarily. That's not how it was really planned. I didn't plan it that way when I was writing the books and teaching, and I have tried to emphasize that in my more recent writing, that those numbers are they're literally just arbitrary, and just to give us something to reference. Some people might prefer, instead of calling this by its number, they would call it the G form pattern, because, well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Hang on, we'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, this was the member's question, and this is what was confusing him. He didn't understand why A minor pentatonic could also be C major pentatonic, but why was he not moving the pattern up and starting it at the 8th fret where C is? If he was going to play this as C major pentatonic, wouldn't he move it up and start it here and on C? And the answer is no. So let me explain real quick. This is really simple, but yet until it clicks, it can be confusing. So this is how it works. The pentatonic is a 5-tone scale, and and unlike the major scale, which has whole steps and then half steps and whole steps and half steps, the pentatonic scale has got larger gaps between the notes. It doesn't have any half step intervals. And I won't get into all the details about its origin. I'm not entirely sure its origin. I mean, I know some things about it, but long story short, there are generally 2 types of pentatonic scale that are used, and that is a minor pentatonic and a major pentatonic. So, for example, A minor pentatonic has a root, a minor third, a fourth, a fifth, and a flat 7th. Or if you want to think in terms of notes, A, C, D, E, G. A major pentatonic would have a root, a second, a third, a fifth, a sixth, and another root there. So if you want to think in terms of notes, that would be A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, A. I just got some noise coming in here. What was that? Let's get rid of that. Sorry. So here's what's interesting is that the pattern that's created on the fretboard for a major pentatonic coincidentally matches that of a minor pentatonic in another key. So I just compared A minor pentatonic and A major pentatonic. Let me go back to A minor pentatonic. The notes that make up A minor pentatonic make up another pentatonic scale in another key, C major pentatonic. C major pentatonic is C, D, E, G, A. So what that means is if you're playing over a piece of music that is an A minor, has an A minor tonality, you can use A minor pentatonic patterns over it. If you're playing over a piece of music that has a C major tonality to it, you can play C major pentatonic patterns. And coincidentally, even though they're kind of 2 different tonalities, you could kind of think of them as 2 different keys. They are related. They are a relative major and minor. They actually have the same notes. The only difference is which note you center on. So in A minor, you center on A, and in C major, you center on C. So in A minor, your ear hears A as the starting point, and it hears all the other intervals in the scale related to A. When you're playing in C major, your ear hears C as the starting point, and it hears all the intervals in relation to C. And coincidentally, they're the same notes, and they make the same sort of pattern. So as guitar players, when we learn the pentatonic scale, we learn that it has a minor form and that it has a major form. So we learn these relative major and minor keys together. In this particular example, A minor is related to C major. That means anywhere on the fretboard that you're playing A minor pentatonic, It doesn't matter what register you're in. You can go up the scale, down the scale. Doesn't matter what position you're playing the notes in. Those very same notes and very same patterns are also C major pentatonic. The only difference is you're going to hear C as the starting point, which means that you're going to want to play the scale over some accompaniment music that is centering on C major, and you'll probably want to phrase your scale where you emphasize C. So same thing, right? Or those were actually the very same patterns, the very same notes. I just started on C there. And I have a track. And let me share my screen with you again, because I want to show you. There we go. Okay, so I'm in the members area. And I'm actually in the 5th course of Fretboard Theory 1. One of the new ones, here's major scale patterns. And I created some new backing tracks for you to work with in these lessons to practice your scale patterns. And I want to go to transposing. Lesson 4, where we talk about transposing major scale patterns. And I give you some major scale patterns in A, and I provide an A major track here. Then I give you some major scale patterns in C, and I give you some tracks here. So here's a C major track. Let's let that play. So I'm just going to let that play. So that's C major. Right? And if I play the C major, which is also A minor pentatonic over this, the idea. And I can move to any pentatonic pattern or position, and it's always going to be C major. Now let me stop this track for a second. I also have a track that is in A minor. And by the way, as I was playing over that C track, I was aware that that my primary pitch was C, and so I was kind of hitting on chord tones related to the C chord, C, E, and G, and the C chord. So here's a track that goes back and forth between A minor and C. So for this example, I can play the same scale over both. So this should be an A minor chord. Right, there's A minor. I think I got about 4 measures of this or so. Then it's going to switch to C. Goes back to A minor. And I'm going to play the same scale over both tonalities. The only difference is on A minor, my focus is A. And on C, my focus is going to be C. the idea, and I just had the idea that it would probably be a good idea for me to take these backing, maybe create an area, a member area, with just backing tracks, because I have some backing tracks in different courses and different lessons. It might be good to kind of organize them also and make them available in one section, so when you're jamming and practicing, you can go, instead of hunting down where those backing tracks are in different lessons, it might be a good idea for me to put them in one area. Remind me of that. Okay, so I'm answering this question, and that's why you don't move A minor pentatonic up to the 8th fret and start pattern 1, as we're calling it here, because that would not be C major pentatonic, that would be C minor pentatonic. So we want to stay down here. I should also point out that when you're playing an A minor or C major, you don't have to start on the primary pitch. You can play A minor pentatonic over an A minor chord, and you can begin anywhere in the scale. All the notes are fair game. There's no rule that says you must start on A or you must start on C when playing over C. But A will sound like the strongest pitch. It'll be your point of resolution when you're in A minor, so it's good to kind of emphasize it, come back to it for resolution here and there, and the same is true when you're in C. So wherever you move this pattern 1, then it could always be minor or it could be major, depending on how you're applying the scale. If you still have questions about that and you're confused, send them my way. And let me check in on some more. Just getting some feedback here. Okay. Yeah, we'll do some more with backing tracks. That's something someone was asking about. Let's keep going here. Oh, another question is, someone asked, are there modes of the pentatonic scale? Can you start on each pentatonic note and treat it like a mode like you do in the major scale? And the answer is, theoretically, sort of, kinda, but practically, no, not really. Usually the pentatonic is just applied in a major or a minor format. And for practical intents and purposes, I would say no, there are not necessarily modal applications. And that doesn't mean that theoretically there couldn't be. Let me see if I can give you a quick explanation without totally confusing you. If you're in the key of A minor, A natural minor, A plain minor, A Aeolian mode, okay, that's going to be notes and chords related to the C major scale, but everything is centering on the 6th degree A minor. So you've got here's the full minor scale. Well, the key of A natural minor has a D minor in it. It's got an E minor in it. And if you're thinking modally, you know that, again, our parent scale here is C major. So we've got a C major scale that could be played, you know, if you start on C, or we've got a D Dorian mode scale that could be played if you start at D, or an E Phrygian scale, and so on. You know, all those modal scales are contained within, they're all using the same notes and chords. And likewise, you also have a corresponding pentatonic for each scale degree. Within the C major scale, you have all the notes of the C major scale, of course, but you also have all the notes of the C major pentatonic. They're in there as well, if you wanted to just cut it down to... Those notes are within the scale. So when you go to the 2nd degree, the C major scale D, you know, if you play through the C notes but you start on D, that's going to give you like D Dorian mode, D Dorian scale. Well, you could cut that down too and actually just play D minor pentatonic. So all of the notes of D minor pentatonic are actually found within our parent scale here. All of the notes of E minor pentatonic are found within our parent scale here. Same is true with F major pentatonic. We're following the chord sequence. G major pentatonic, and of course A minor pentatonic. 7th degree of the C major scale is B. You don't have a B minor pentatonic. You know the chord is a minor flat 5. It's got a flat 5th. So, but all the rest have a minor pentatonic. Their minor pentatonics are contained within the scale. So what that means is, if you're playing over an A minor chord, you can play any notes from its parent scale, C major, right? We'll call it A minor here. You can play any notes. Whoops. You can play the full minor scale, you can do the pentatonic. Any notes that are related to in the scale are fair game, which means you could play D minor pentatonic over A minor. Well, why would you do that? Because the D minor pentatonic notes are actually found within the A minor scale. So it might sound a little funny, and let me see if I can give you an example. Because the pentatonic really kind of, let's start this track over. Here we go. So this is going to give me some A minor, and I'm going to play D minor pentatonic over it. I'm bringing it back to A here for some resolution, but now we're on the C major chord, and I still could play this. Same notes over it. Technically, when I play D minor here, I am playing notes that are still drawn from the same parent scale, so they are fair game. Doesn't really sound all that good because the pentatonic really kind of brings out the tonality of its tonic pitch, so it doesn't seem to match or fit the way that you would expect. You know, when I play A minor, you know, that just really fits in well. So D minor, yeah, the notes aren't out of key necessarily, but they don't necessarily sound like the strongest notes. Let me try E minor pentatonic. I could do that as well. Oh, this is on C right now. So here comes the A minor. So that was a little bit of it. Again, those notes aren't necessarily out of key. If I worked with this a little bit more, worked on my phrasing, I could actually get some interesting sounds. And you will see some players teach this concept and demonstrate it, sometimes to good effect, where they're able to make it work, and like I said, it can have a decent sound. But I would say, so that's kind of like a modal concept. It's not exactly the same, but it's where you're in this case you're in a minor key and you're moving to some related pentatonic scales that have notes related to the parent scale here. I'll tell you this though, generally speaking, in most popular music, you know, all the music that I reference, players just don't apply the scale in this way necessarily. Except for if they're playing over chord changes. I mean, if you're playing over chord changes like A minor, you know, you're doing Stairway to Heaven. You can play A minor pentatonic over the whole thing. Well, but the chord changes to G and F, so you're hearing A minor pentatonic over G, A minor pentatonic over F, so you're kind of getting a little bit of that mixture. Not really the same thing though, because even though you have chord changes, A minor is still your primary chord. It comes back to it. So that's kind of an explanation of how a, you know, quasi-modal concept could work within the pentatonic scale, but generally speaking, players really don't, they just don't apply it that way. Now, in some styles of music, like where players, you know, jam styles of music, maybe some jazz fusion or something like that, or they intentionally want to kind of get outside of the box, you might hear that used. But in most of the popular stuff, the classic rock, you know, most of the stuff that I teach, it just uses straight up, you know, this pentatonic application that I teach. All right. So now that I've totally confused you. So anyway, long story short, I would say honestly, don't worry about any sort of pentatonic modal application, you know, unless you've already mastered every application of the pentatonic there is and you want to do something that's just a little bit different. Then maybe, you know, you could get into that. Okay. Let's check in here. See how we're doing. A couple more things I want to cover. We're going to take two more questions I want to cover. This next one deals with Guitar Pro 6. Somebody asked me about Guitar Pro 6. Let me pull that up and I'll just give you a quick explanation. Do we have any Guitar Pro 6 or Guitar Pro, depending on which version you have, users out there? Let me know if you use it. I'm opening the application here on my end. And I want to see if I can share my screen with you. Okay, hang on, it's taking a minute to open. Yep, we'll do it. All right, this is Guitar Pro. This is a document I have open. Guitar Pro is essentially it's a notation program. You can create notation, you can create guitar tablature. And somebody asked, you know, is it good to have? Is it a good tool to have? And do I prefer it over other notation programs? And I'm going to give you an answer. But first, what am I looking for? Okay, let's. This is just a series of chord changes I wrote out here. This is for one of the lessons where we're talking about playing a major scale using sevenths. So this isn't necessarily a piece of music. So I prefer Guitar Pro over other programs like Sibelius or what is it, Finale. But here's the deal. If you're going to use Guitar Pro, you do need to be familiar with standard notation. You need to be able to read and write standard notation, at least the basics, because you can't input in tab alone without assigning the notes some sort of note value. So you have to be able to you know, set a time signature and then create note values so that your measures are correct. So if you don't read music at all and you're just looking for something where you can scribble out some notes in tab, Guitar Pro is probably not going to help you. Let's see. So for example, here's another one. This is an exercise. But here's the nice thing about Guitar Pro. If you know the basics of notation and you can, you know, input things in, then so that's an exercise playing, what is that, A minor pentatonic scale. This is an exercise playing in a melodic pattern in groups of 3. You're climbing up the A minor pentatonic scale, 1, 2, 3. Then you go back to the second note and go 1, 2, 3. Then the third note, 1, 2, 3, and so on. You'll find this in the members area. But I actually had to go through and manually, input this. If I was going to do a pentatonic scale, if I wanted to write out a pentatonic scale, I can go to the next measure here, and let's say I start at the 5th fret. So there's A. But see, I have to give it some sort of note value here. Is it going to be a whole note, a half note, a quarter note? I'll make it a quarter note for now. So A. Then I can use my keyboard to and I use the arrows to move up and down to go to the next note. Whoops. So there's a A minor pentatonic right there. If I want to create some harmony or something, I can do. So it's good. I like it. It's a great practicing tool too, because sometimes I might be playing something and I like to write it out. Maybe as I'm fumbling through something and I'm just not sure. I'm like, do I have these rhythms wrong? Or maybe it's something that I'm not able to play. I think it might sound good if I put the notes together in a certain order up to tempo. But rather than sit around and practice on my guitar for an hour trying to figure it out, I'll put it in Guitar Pro, get all the notes worked out the way that I think it should work, set a tempo, hit play, and then I'll listen to it and I'll say, you know what, that does sound good. Okay, let me practice that now and let me get it under my fingers. Or I'll say, yeah, that didn't sound the way I hoped it would sound. I'll skip that. I like the features. I like that it's got some built-in sounds, and it has more. I think you can purchase more. I just use some of the standard built-in sounds. So I can play things back, and then it has the option, once you get things worked out, where if you just want to display tablature, you can hide the notation. But I always have the notation displayed when I create something, even if I'm just going to end up using it as strictly tablature, because I have to be able to know the note values. Guitar tablature does require that you input things, numerically, musically correct. And then you can do things such as hammer-ons and pull-offs. If I wanted to do a hammer-on, whoops, that's not what I want. Would it be there? There you go. So that'd be a hammer-on. Or actually, I think, no. That one, yes. No. There we go. Let's listen to that. And I could do a bend or something if I wanted to. You can hit where's the bend button? You can adjust how much do you want to bend, that sort of thing. So there's a bit of a learning curve. You do have to know the basics of music notation. Then you got to get to know the program itself and how to make the edits and everything. I have found Guitar Pro, personally, I think it's easier than some of the other notation programs I've used, like Finale and Sibelius. So that's why I like it. However, let me get back to my... Hey, there I am again. However, there is one drawback to using Guitar Pro, and that is that sometimes the way it actually displays the notation is it doesn't display it as correctly as some of the other programs do. So for some of my books, I made the I made the figures in Guitar Pro, then I sent them to someone who used either like Sibelius or Finale to actually recreate them so that the tablature matched what you would see in like a professional tab book. Because there's some little techniques and there's some things that Guitar Pro just it just doesn't display it the way that some other programs do, and it can be a little confusing. Bends in particular. So, for example, usually in a guitar tab book, in the notation, it'll show you the initial note you strike, and then it's going to show you the bend, and it's going to show you the actual pitch that you're bending to. Guitar Pro 6 won't do that. It'll show you the initial note, and it'll show you that you bend it up a whole step, but it doesn't actually notate the pitch of the bent note. That doesn't bother me when I'm using Guitar Pro. It's only an issue when I'm printing music, because technically I want to make sure I can get things as complete as possible. So there are times when I have ask someone to recreate it in another program, because I had Finale and I had Sibelius, and I just didn't want to use them. I got used to using Guitar Pro, and if I need anything redone, I just send it to someone else and say, hey, can you just redo this for me really quick? Okay, so that answers the question on Guitar Pro. It's actually a great tool for learning, for practicing, especially if you're a composer and you want to, put some write out some basic chord changes and then write out some melodic lines to hear how they sound, or take a melodic line and increase the tempo and speed it up. That's kind of a fun exercise where I'll take, I might take a line or something like, something like, maybe I'm trying to work out a line. So maybe I have an idea of how I might create kind of a fast country line with some chromaticism in it. So I might punch it into Guitar Pro, then I'll speed it up and I'll listen back to it quickly. And if it sounds cool, then I'll work on it and I'll practice it until I can do it. That's an example of a line that has become kind of a staple of my playing whenever I'm playing a style of music where that would be suitable. And I worked it out slowly in Guitar Pro, sped it up, created a sound that I liked. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a guy who's playing some cool country lines. And once it sounded good in Guitar Pro, then I rehearsed it on guitar. So that's just one example. So Guitar Pro is good, but you do have to be familiar with standard notation. We're going to have to wrap up here pretty soon. I want to cover one more question. This one came in about the song Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. You're probably familiar with that song. It's in the key of D. And the verses and the choruses are all right out of the D scale. Playing in different positions, sometimes using open chords. So I think that the verses are just 1 and 5, right? Then it goes to the chorus. So that's, B minor, A, D, G, or 6, 5, 1, 4. Whoops. But when you get to the bridge, all of a sudden it introduces F, B flat, and C. Well, wait, hang on. There's no F in the D major scale. There's no B flat in the D major scale. There's no C in the D major scale. So this member says it does not seem to be a... What did he say? Hang on. Oh, so he asked, where do those chords come from? Why did they work? Is it a key change? Is it a mode? Is this F Phrygian mode? This is actually a key change. And I teach key changes in Fretboard Theory Volume 2. When you get to the bridge of this song, you basically just switch from D, the D major scale, to the F major scale. So you've gone up 3 half steps, right? D to D sharp to E to F. And F, B flat, and C are just 1, 4, 5 out of the F major scale. So this is a very common progression. It's a 1, 4, 5 progression. And this is a fairly common composition technique to use during a bridge. Usually, I mean, there's no written rule that says you have to change keys during a bridge, but typically a bridge section of a song is intended to take you somewhere else. You know, a song will often go verse, chorus, and then you need something to kind of break up the monotony. And so usually a new set of chord changes or a new melody or maybe a new groove and often a new key will temporarily be introduced just to add some more variety. And if I can share my screen with you again. All right, let's get to that. Where is it? There we go. So if you go to Fretboard Theory Volume 2, actually, let me back, well, yeah. Right here, Chapter 4, Course 4. Key changes, modal mixtures, and the circle of fifths. So in these lessons, I get into how musicians will compose one piece of music, but they will actually include more than one key. And just so you don't get confused or ahead of yourself, let me go back to the dashboard here. I teach chord progressions and playing by numbers here in the first course. You definitely need to know this first. You need to understand basic chord construction, triads, the major scale, how to play. You need to understand how to play chord progressions that stick in one key before you move to chord progressions that change keys. So don't get ahead of yourself there. And there's two kind of basic ways that key changes would work on a piece of music. One way is that you'll have a key and you'll have some typical chord changes, and then for some section of the song you'll either move up a couple of frets and play in a new key but play some typical chord changes in that key, and then maybe you go back down, or maybe you go down and you go back up. And I walk you through several different examples. What we played here in Summer of '69 is actually fairly common to go up a minor third, 3 half steps. That just happens to be a real common key change. I'm not sure why that works out well, but perhaps just because of its popularity, more musicians, it has just become acceptable to our ears, so we're used to hearing that. But going up by a minor third and then going down, you know that a lot of songs you'll be singing the final chorus of the song, and instead of just continuing to repeat it over and over and over to add some variety, they take things up a half step or a whole step or a minor third, and they re-sing it in a new key. So that's one way that you can change keys. Another way is you can use something called modal interchange or modal mixture, and that's where I use this key as an example. You would take the notes and the chords for like the D major scale, and then you would take the notes and chords from a parallel scale. That would be a different scale that also starts in the same tonic pitch D. So you might take the D minor scale and its chords, and you kind of blend them together. So you start on D, and you might move to some of the chords from the major scale. You might move to some of the chords from the minor scale, and you can get some really interesting chord changes that you wouldn't normally get if you were just using one scale. So that's called modal mixture. You know, you could take Ionian mode and Aeolian mode. That'd be the major scale and the minor scale, relative major, relative minor. Sometimes musicians will take maybe Aeolian mode, natural minor, and Dorian mode. So they They'd take the notes and chords from D Dorian and D Aeolian, and they'd kind of mix them up and play chord changes, and they would borrow notes and chords from different scales. Sometimes they'd use more than one scale. They might use a handful of scales. I talk about that in Fretboard Theory Volume 2. I'll even give you a couple of examples where songs mix all three minor modes, all in one song, all in one chord progression. And that's called modal mixture or modal interchange, or it's also called borrowed chords. So you might be in the D major scale, but you're going to borrow chords from other types of D scales. Borrow something from a D minor scale, or maybe a D Dorian scale, or a D Mixolydian scale. Really neat stuff, and when you get to that point, a lot of people have a big aha moment because they had learned the basics of chord progressions and they knew how to move in one major scale. And a lot of songs do, typically songs will stick in one major scale, but not always. And so as they would come across songs that didn't fit into one major scale, they couldn't understand why, and certain songs just seem to be all over the place, and you just can't make any sense of how the chords are related. But then when you study modal interchange, all of a sudden it makes sense. I see. They're starting on D, and this was a Dorian mode change, and this was maybe a Phrygian change, and this was a natural minor change, and so on. So Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams is starts out in the key of D, and most of it is straight out of the D major scale. Then everything just moves up 3 half steps, and you play a typical 1-5-4 chord progression in F for the bridge, and then it returns right back down to D. Overall, you would still say the song's in the key of D, because usually when people refer to keys, they just refer very generally to the primary tonality overall, so they'd say D. And I'd have to take a look at the notation. Sometimes in notation, if you do have a key change, sometimes they'll indicate that with a key signature change. So you'll have the key signature for F major, for the bridge. Sometimes they'll just keep the key signature the same, and they'll just use accidentals, flats and sharps, to adjust any notes. And that's up to the arranger or whoever's putting the notation together, whether or not they think they should, instruct the player to change keys or not. When you're dealing with modal interchange, they typically will just stay in one key signature, and then they'll use flats and sharps to make any other adjustments, because when you got a chord progression that's going back and forth between different scales constantly, it doesn't make any sense to constantly be changing the key signature. So you just have to stay in one key signature and use flats and sharps to make adjustments. Guys, I am going to wrap up. If you have any questions, send them now. Let me check in here. Yeah, okay. Let's do... Okay, here's a question about private guitar lessons. So you know that I am offering members the opportunity, if you want some more personalized instruction, if you want to just connect privately and do a one-on-one video chat through Skype or Google Hangouts or something, you can do that. Information is in the member area. Just go to member resources and you'll see the Skype lessons thing. So, by the way, as a member, at least for now, since this is new and I want to make sure I work all the bugs out and make sure everyone is satisfied, if you ever need to just, if you got a quick question, if you want to connect by phone or by video just for a couple of minutes because you're confused about something and you got a quick question and you want a quick answer, I'm happy to do that free of charge. So if you just need to talk for 5 minutes or something, that's fine. Reach out to me and we'll get it done. Now, if you want to spend more time, if you want to do a whole lesson, so you want us to get together for 30 minutes or an hour or something, I do charge extra for that. So, currently I'm just charging $1 a minute. So if you want to do like a 30-minute session, $30, 60-minute session, $60, and just email me and we can work out a time that's convenient for both of us, and we'll get together and we'll see. I'll probably ask you to just pay it in advance. So if you want to, I would say if you want to do a session, let's plan on at least 30 minutes. And then if we go over, we can settle up afterwards. So that's how that works. And I think I've covered all the questions. So we are going to wrap this up. And I'll wrap it up with a little playing. Let me pull up that track again. So we'll go back to A minor and C. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. And, you know, you can always send me an email, ask any question. I'm here to help. That's what the members area is for. So I'm going to just jam here for a minute. I'm going to play over A minor and C major. By the way, I'm working in some major scale and minor scale in here as well. So. Whoops. See you next time, everybody.